Namaskar friends, welcome to the channel JIV and CIV Made Simple. In this particular video, we are going to discuss our unit number 9 of central banking, and the chapter name, as you can see, is fiscal monetary relation, unit number 9. So let's get started with our very first topic, that is the objective. So in this unit, we are focusing on two major tools that the government use to manage the economy. So what are the two major tools that the government use? So what are the two tools? The first is the monetary policy, another is the fiscal policy. So we are talking with respect to the government, the tools used by the government, right? What are the name? The name is monetary policy and fiscal policy, right? So the main purpose of both is very simple, right? So yes, we are talking about monetary policy. So friends, just now we have discussed, we are talking about the impact on the growth. So I told you now earlier, RBI used to follow the accommodative monetary policy. So what is the meaning of accommodative monetary policy? Which means RBI kept money easily available and keep the interest rate low on the government security to support the government spending. So main point was supporting the government spending. So but this has a downside. This has a side effect. What kind of side effect it had? That it made it harder for the RBI to control the inflation. So how these two policies are connected, monetary policy and fiscal policy, how these two are connected, how they work together, and what recent changes have happened in the financial position of the central and state government. That is what we are going to discuss. So let's get started with our monetary policy. So what do central bank want? So central bank like the RBI have one major responsibility to keep the price stable. Let me highlight it. So this is called price stability. Okay. So and this is the first thing. This is the first role that is the central bank have to do, which means controlling inflation. And the second thing they have to do is to support the economic growth while promoting the economic growth. Okay. So price stability is very, very important. These are the two main role of central bank. This one is very important because if the price keep rising in the is very fast, the economy become unstable. What will happen to the economy? If the price keep rising, economy will become unstable, right? And when when inflation is under control, business and people can plan better and the economy grows smoothly. Now inflation and growth, what does the research say? According to the economic study, there is something called optimal inflation rate. Let me highlight this point. There is something called optimal rate of inflation, a level of inflation that actually help the economy grow. For maximizing the economic growth, there is an optimal rate of inflation, but there is a limit that when the inflation become too high, it harm our economic growth, right? So suppose the inflation become too high, it is detrimental to our growth. For healthy growth, inflation should ideally stay below. So earlier RBI follow this accommodative monetary policy, which means decreasing the interest rate, maintaining low interest rate, monetizing government debt, and kept money easily available. But it has some downside effect. What was the downside effect? It made it hard for RBI to control inflation, right? So hard for RBI to control inflation. As a result, what happened? The growth rate, economic growth rate remained very low. It remained very low. Around how much? 3%. Right. This was the economic growth rate until 1980s. So you can see they have clearly mentioned that Indian economy remained low until 1980 at around 3%. So too much money in the system did not translate into a strong growth. Right. So balancing inflation and growth. So to achieve both the price stability as well as economic growth, there must be proper coordination between the monetary policy and the fiscal policy, right? Proper coordination is required because on one side, the two main philosophy, the two main point of RBI, right? They want to achieve price stability, which means keeping inflation under control, and they also want to achieve the economic growth. So how to achieve both of them? To achieve both of them, there should be proper coordination between monetary and fiscal policy. If the government keeps spending too much while RBI is trying to control inflation, both policy will clash, right? So government cannot keep spending too much, and obviously RBI controlling inflation. These two are opposite. Now financial sector reform. So reform in the financial sector, like improving the banks, like strengthening the markets, like making rule clear rule. So strengthening the bank, strengthening the market, making clear rule. So all these things, these kind of reform help both the policies work better together, for fiscal policy and monetary policy. So these reform make the financial system more efficient, which support a smoother policy coordination. Now, the next point we have is the increasing the autonomy of the RBI. So, India took major step to give RBI more freedom and reduce government dependence on its money. Ending the automatic monetization. This was the first step. Like ending the automatic monetization, which means RBI no longer print money automatically to finance the government spending. So RBI no longer spend money. So basically, the RBI was printing money to finance what? RBI was printing money to finance the government expenditure. Now it is no longer done. That's called automatic monetization ended. So that this help in giving more power, right? Increasing the RBI autonomy. And then second, this FRBM Act comes into picture. Fiscal Responsibility Budget Management Act. So this law put limit on how much debt the government can take. So this FRBM law, what it did? It put limit. Limit on what? Limit on how much the debt the government can take. So this FRBM Act put limit debt that government can take. So these kind of steps like automatic monetization, fiscal responsibility and budget management, these steps improve the relationship between fiscal and monetary authority and made policy more disciplined. They enhance the discipline of the policy, and the relationship between the fiscal and monetary authority become more improved. Fine, that is the point. Now, why monetary policy is important? Monetary policy ensure that money supply grow only as fast as the economy can handle, right? So that's the point. By ensuring that monetary expansion align with the country productive capacity. So this is what monetary policy ensure, that money supply only grow as fast as the economy can handle. So there is a capacity that which our economy can handle, and money supply only grow within that capacity. Second thing, the importance of monetary policy. Monetary policy also ensure the direct credit to the productive sector of the economy. Credit flow to the productive sector of the. Now you may ask me, what are the productive sector? Like industry, like agriculture, like business. And the third thing is not to speculate, not to do unproductive activity. So these are the three importance. These are the three uses of the monetary policy. And the RBI has adopted global standard in monetary policy and expanded its role. So they have adopted the global standard in the monetary policy and also expanded its role to include what? To include to ensure financial stability, strong supervision, and better regulation of bank. So RBI has adopted global standard in the monetary policy. So now you can appreciate what is the importance of monetary policy in terms of monetary expansion, aligning with the country productive capacity, credit to the productive sector of the economy, and the third thing we have just discussed. Now there are some challenges. So India often receives a large amount of foreign money. That's called capital inflow, right? So there is something called capital inflow. India often receives large amount of foreign money. While this is good for investment, too much of it can increase the inflation. Yes, capital inflow is there, but suppose up to a certain limit it is good. But if it reaches a higher limit, it causes inflation. It can cause inflation. We are talking about capital inflow. Second thing it can do, it make the currency too strong. It make the currency strong. Third thing it can do, it can create instability in the financial market. So to manage this, RBI and government introduce MSS. MSS is called market stabilization bond. Because and that's called MSB, market stabilization scheme. And this monetary stabilization scheme. So this scheme help absorb excess money from the system. We have discussed that why monetary policy is so much important. First thing I told you now, that money supply grow only as fast as the economy can handle. This is the first reason, right? So increasing RBI autonomy, I already told you. Importance of monetary policy, we have just discussed, that credit flow to the productive sector and not to a speculative or unproductive activity. But there is a major challenge, and challenge is the excessive capital inflow. India often receive large amount of foreign money. That's called capital inflow. And this capital inflow, when there is obviously this is good for investment, but too much of it can increase the inflation, make the currency too much strong, create instability in the financial market. So how to tackle it? So in order to tackle it, RBI, what they do, they have introduced the monetary stabilization scheme. So question may be asked, why this monetary stabilization scheme was introduced? So to keep capital inflow in balance, this was done, right? So what it can do? So this scheme help absorb excess money from the system to prevent inflation from rising. Yes. So using this monetary stabilization scheme, RBI along with the government can, absorb excess money in the system. So if we talk about the market stabilization scheme or MSB, so when too much foreign money flow into the country, it increases the money supply. It can cause inflation. Suppose huge amount of money flowing into our country. So what will happen? This will cause inflation to rise, and this will cause inflation, right? And to control this, what RBI use? RBI use MSB, market stabilization bond. So these are a special kind of bond that are issued to absorb extra money from the economy, right? So what they do? They immobilize excessive capital flow. They absorb extra money from the economy, and this help control inflation and keep the financial system stable. So basically, these MSB or market stabilization bond, what they do? They lock up the extra money so that it does not cause overheating in the economy. Now there is something called growth and inflation in the year 2009 to 2011. So during 2009 to 10 and 2010 to 11, inflation was very high. But India still achieved a GDP growth rate of 8 to 10%. Inflation was very high and GDP growth rate was around 8 to 10%. So to manage the inflation, RBI focus on increasing the repo rate. So how RBI control inflation? Through increasing the repo rate, right? So that, what is the repo rate? Rate at which bank borrow from RBI. So this is the bank and this is the RBI. The rate at which, right, the bank borrow from RBI is called the repo rate. So during 2009 and 2010 and 2011 and 2010-11, inflation was very high. India still achieved GDP growth rate of 8 to 10%. To manage the inflation, RBI focus on increasing the repo rate. So when the repo rate is increased, the rate at which bank borrow from RBI, that rate is increased, right? So what will happen? That obviously this will cause liquidity to decrease. Inflation will be under control. So the challenge was that control inflation expectation, right? Inflation expectation and without hurting the economic growth. This required very careful balancing. So yes, there was growth inflation trade-off. So normally people believe that high growth means high inflation. What people believe? When growth is high, it means inflation is high. Normally people believe this. But Suvir Gokaran research, right? So they say something surprising. What does this research say? It says that over many decades, as growth increases, inflation actually decreases. Normally people believe that as growth increases, inflation will increase. But this person, Suvir Gokaran research shows that, right, as growth increased, right, inflation decreases. That is what they showed. So friends, this person research shows that, as growth increase and inflation actually decrease, right? And when we remove the slow growing agricultural sector from the data, the link even become clear. If we remove the agricultural sector from the data, what does the link show? The link shows that faster growth, lower inflation. So if you remove the slow growing agriculture from the data, it become very apparent that as growth increase, right, inflation decrease. So India experience does not support the typical trade-off theory, right? Now I hope it is crystal clear what the Suvir Gokaran research suggests, that if we remove, they suggested that as growth increase, inflation decrease, and removing slow growing agriculture sector, right, this become more evident. Now finance of central and state government. So government spending, especially on infrastructure, plays a key role in boosting the economic recovery. Yes. So especially we are talking about infrastructure investment. As this infrastructure investment increases, it has positive impact on the economic recovery. Why is infrastructure investment so powerful? Because it creates something called forward linkage. Yes, very important. It creates something forward linkage. What is forward linkage? So forward linkage means helping the industries that rely on road, that rely on power, that rely on port. So as infrastructure increases, the forward linkage increases. Second thing, it also increases the backward linkage. Backward linkage means creating demand for cement, creating demand for steel, creating demand for machinery. So as infrastructure increase, backward linkage also create. And it has a multiplier effect. Multiplier effect means 1 rupee they spend can create more than 1 rupee of the economic activity. So infrastructure investment spend the overall economic growth in multiple directions. Forward linkage, backward linkage, multiplier impact. So you can see the impact of infrastructure investment on the economic recovery. Now let's talk about the DFI, Development Financial Institution. In the Union Budget 21-22, the government announced a new development financial institution with a capital of 20,000 crore. So the purpose was to finance the large infrastructure project under the NIP. What is NIP? National Infrastructure Pipeline. This was the main purpose, to finance the project under NIP, National Infrastructure Pipeline. Right. So basically, the purpose I think is clear, and to provide long-term funding. The another purpose of creating the DFI was to provide long-term funding, which normally bank cannot provide. So why DFI was created? So to provide the long-term funding. Normally bank were not providing so much long-term funding. That's why this DFI was created. Now friends, let's shift our focus. Let's understand the recent step taken by government and RBI to strengthen the infrastructure, maintain fiscal discipline, and support the state during COVID-19 crisis. So first of all, NIP, National Infrastructure Pipeline. So it is a major program to finance long-term project in areas like road, railway, energy, and urban development. That's called NIP. So I hope it is crystal clear. So why is NIP so much important? Big infrastructure project need long-term loan, right? You can see now, suppose we have a big infra product or big infra project. So they need what? They need long-term loan. And NIP helps solve this by creating a structured pipeline of project. So let me highlight the keyword, right? NIP helps solve this problem of long-term loan by creating a structured pipeline of product. Right. So thus to support this national infrastructure pipeline, the government is improving the ease of doing business. Right. Effort are being made to ease of doing business, contract enforcement, and then cross-border trade. Right. Trading across border. So this help India improve its ranking in the World Bank Ease of Doing Business Index. Yes, it enhanced India ranking in the World Bank Index Ease of Doing Business, making India more attractive for global investor. Right. That is called National Infrastructure Pipeline. So ease of doing business, contract enforcement, cross-border trade, right? That's the point. Now we have the fiscal consolidation by the central government. So what is the meaning of this term fiscal consolidation? It means simply reducing the fiscal deficit over the time. So when I say this fiscal consolidation, it means what? We are reducing the fiscal deficit over the time. What happened in the year 21-22? The gross fiscal deficit was 9.4% of the GDP. Yes, in the 21-22, the gross fiscal deficit was 6.8% of GDP due to the COVID-related spending. And for 21-22, right, the government planned to reduce GFD, that is gross fiscal deficit, to how much? What was the plan? The plan was to reduce it to how much? 6.5, 6.8. This was the plan. Earlier it was 9.4%. The plan was to bring it down to 6.8%. So the long-term goal is to bring the deficit below 4.5% of the GDP by 25-26. That is the long-term goal. How will the government reduce the deficit? Yes, what measure it will take to reduce the deficit? Right. So better tax compliance. Yes, to improve the tax revenue compliance. Second, asset monetization, which means selling or leasing the government asset. By selling or by leasing the government asset they can do. And disinvestment receipt, which means selling government stake in public sector company. This is the way. So these steps help create more capex, more capital expenditure, which boosts the long-term growth. So to bring this fiscal deficit down to 4.5%, the government is taking such certain measures like improving the tax revenue compliance, asset monetization, disinvestment receipt, etc., etc. Then comes state government finance. State also follow the fiscal discipline. So target GFD for state in 21-22 was how much? Around 3.2% of GDP. Right, as recommended by the 15th Finance Commission. But due to COVID-19, state has to spend more on healthcare and relief. This may need to borrow more. They may need to borrow more to provide counter-cyclic support. Yeah, they need to borrow more to provide this counter-cyclical support. Meaning they increases spending when the economy slow down. Then comes central government finance in 2021. So when the COVID hit, right, union government announced a major economic relief and economic package around how much? 17.2 lakh crore. You see. So how much it was? It was amounting to 17.2 lakh crore. Right. This was the central government finance in 2021. So when the COVID hit, the union government announced major economic relief and reform package around 17.2 lakh crore. So what are the things under this included? Like food security, support for a small business, healthcare spending, credit guarantee, direct benefit transfer, etc. Right. Food security, support, and credit guarantee, and DVT. All these things were part and parcel of the this central government finance. So these measures were aimed at protecting livelihood and business. Now let's look at what are the RBI measures to support the state finance. To help state manage liquidity during COVID, the RBI took several steps. What are the steps that they took? They increased the wage and mean advance. The first step they do, increase wage and mean advance limit, which means WMA are short-term loan provided by RBI to states. So this is RBI and this is a state. So there are short-term loan provided by RBI to the state, and that's called WMA, wage and mean advance. So RBI increased these limits so that a state could borrow more money quickly, right? So what RBI do? They increase the wage and mean advance limit so that a state could borrow more money quickly. Okay, and then what they do? They extended the number of days for overdraft. You can see now they extended the overdraft day. So what does it mean? It means if a state borrow beyond WMA limit, RBI extended the number of days they could remain in overdraft. Okay, so this prevented financial stress during the pandemic. Then relaxed rule for CSF withdrawal. That's called consolidated sinking fund withdrawal. This CSF is used by state to repay the market borrowing. So RBI relaxed withdrawal rule so that a state could access this fund more easily to repay the loan. That's called consolidated sinking fund was make relax. This fund is used by a state to repay the market borrowing. Whatever, see, suppose there is a state, they have some market borrowing, right? And they want to repay them. So they can use this fund, and this fund is called consolidated sinking fund. So what RBI did in the COVID-19, that it relaxed the withdrawal rule, right? So overall, these measures gave state breathing space to maintain their budget, to manage their budget during the crisis. First thing, increasing the WMA, wage and mean advance, so that short-term loans, more short-term loan were provided to the state government. Second thing, extending the number of day of overdraft. Third thing, CSF fund. Now the next concept was some extra measures name has been given here, like during the COVID-19 crisis. So these are the key government measures taken during COVID-19. So how they supported people and business, and how both the central and state government manage their finance. So the first one was Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Package. We call it PMGKP. PMGKP. What happened during the COVID-19? One of the biggest priority was to protect the poor and the vulnerable. Right, this was the biggest priority, protecting the vulnerable population and the poor. So this PMKJP, they provided free food grain, direct cash transfer to women, support to worker in the organized sector. So this PMKJP, PMGKP, free food grain, direct benefit transfer, support for the organized sector. So the idea was very simple: give immediate relief to people affected by lockdown and job loss. Right, this was the idea. Give immediate relief. Right, now there is something called Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan 1.0. So basically this package focused on giving business more money, more flexibility, so that they could survive the pandemic. So it includes liquidity support for MSME, NBFC, HFC, MFI, Discom. Right, it also includes structural reform in big sector like coal, mineral, defense, agriculture. So basically these reforms aim to improve long-term productivity and make India more self-reliant. That's called structural reform. Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan 1.0. Liquidity support. The main point, please remember, this is the point, liquidity support. Next we have the central government finance. For the year 21-22, the central government set a fiscal deficit target of 6.8% of GDP. I think we have discussed it earlier also, right? So showing a move toward fiscal consolidation after the high pandemic spending. So focusing on fiscal consolidation. So how will the government fund this plan? So yeah, tax revenue, asset monetization, disinvestment. I think we have covered this, right? So this thing is repeated. Yes. Fiscal package, Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan. Already I told you what was the fiscal cost. Yes. Now let's shift our focus to the spending response to the COVID-19. Let's talk about it. Yes, during the early month of the pandemic, the state spent heavily on health and relief. During the early month, they also took cost-saving measures such as freezing dearness allowance. Yes, they freeze the DA, they deferred salary in some cases, and they make temporary reduction to manage the cash flow. Despite all this effort to reduce the cost, revenue spending still went up because states has to fund emergency services, medical facility, PPE, testing, and welfare scheme. If you look at the impact on fiscal surplus, before the pandemic, many states expected to have a huge revenue surplus, meaning they plan to earn more than they spent. Right? That is called revenue surplus. But due to low revenue, due to high COVID-related spending, these expected surplus turned into deficit. So they expected to have surplus, but because of this COVID-19, these surplus turned into deficit. So state planned to save more, but instead they ended up borrowing more to meet the basic need. But what happened to the so some data have been given, I think. Let me show you. Yes, you can see. So here is the data. State finance in 21-22. Yes, let's have a look. So for the year 21-22, 17 states budgeted their GFD. So the data of the 17 states have been given. The gross physical deficit was around 3.2% of the GSDP, which is in line with the 15th Finance Commission recommendation. The state were able to move toward fiscal consolidation because of higher revenue receipt as the economy recovered, reduced revenue expenditure after the peak COVID month, higher capex to support long-term growth. In simple word, a state started earning more, spent slightly more responsibly, and invested in infrastructure. Then there was support from 15th Finance Commission. The 15th Finance Commission recommended various grant to the state. Yes, they recommended various kind of grant. These kind of grant help the state manage the revenue shortage. So they help manage the revenue shortage. They help improve the health and disaster management system, and they strengthen the local body like panchayat, right, and municipalities. So this support provided financial breathing space to a state dealing with pandemic impact on their revenue. Now, why do we have a planning commission? Yes, the Constitution of India provides for setting up a finance commission finance commission. So the Constitution of India provide for setting up a finance commission every 5 years. So finance commission is set, every 5 years. So its purpose is very simple: to decide how money collected by the center should be shared with the state. So we have the center, right, and money collected by the center, how it should be shared with the state, right? That's the purpose. This ensures that both level of government have adequate fund to carry out their responsibility. If you look at the function of finance commission, so finance commission performs several important functions. What are the key responsibility? Like decide how tax revenue should be distributed between center and state. That's the point. Recommending the distribution of tax proceed. First point. Second thing is lay down principle for grant in aid. Principle for grant in aid. This is the second thing. Third is recommended measure to strengthen the state consolidated fund. So and examine other financial matters. So these decisions help maintain financial balance and ensure a smooth functioning of all level of government. So these are the functions of finance commission. So tax revenue distribution, first point, right? Then lay down the so question may be asked, when it was constituted, right? So its purpose is to decide how money collected by center should be shared with the state. That is what finance commission do. And the tax distribution, first point, principle for grant in aid, right? Measures to strengthen state consolidated fund, recommended source for panchayat, municipality. So after 1951, since 1951, India has multiple finance commission. Each finance commission has played a crucial role in what? Each finance commission has played a crucial role in improving fiscal relation, adjusting resource allocation, right, and supporting economic development. Now we have the fiscal roadmap. Let's talk about it. Talk about the function of Finance Commission. I think we have discussed tax proceed between center and state, grant in aid, panchayat and municipality. That's all. Now, various finance commission have been appointed in India since 1951, and they have played a significant role in shaping resource allocation. Now, finance commission have developed criteria like demographic condition, per capita income, income disparity, forest cover, right? And there is a 15th finance commission which was appointed in the year 2017, chaired by N.K. Singh. They made major recommendation for the period 21-26. Its full report was submitted in November 2020 and presented to Parliament in February 21. Right. So what was the recommendation? The first recommendation was, tax devolution. So FC 15, that is Finance Commission 15, maintain the tax devolution ratio, continuing the trend of tax devolution as the primary mean for federal transfer. Tax devolution. Second point is the horizontal sharing. So what is the meaning of horizontal sharing? Which means it uses equity-based criteria for interstate distribution, means distribution between two different states. Moving the population census from 1971 from 2011. Demographic performance. So this finance commission introduced a new criteria based on demographic performance to reward those states that successfully control population growth. So those states who have successfully controlled population growth, they should be rewarded, right? And new criteria was introduced based on demographic performance. And this financial commission also introduced the criteria for tax effort, right? So these were the major recommendation: tax devolution, horizontal sharing, and demographic performance. Then comes grant in aid. So what is the meaning of this term grant in aid? So basically FC 15 recommended a historically high share of grant in total transfer, with grant to local bodies having the highest share. It did recommended that grant to local bodies should have the highest share. It also brought back sector state specific grant which the union government will consider while revisiting the centrally sponsored scheme. Now, fiscal roadmap rule. So finance commission help the government maintain discipline in public finance. This finance commission, they help the government to maintain the discipline in public finance. They do this by recommending the debt target. They recommend what? They recommend the debt target. They recommend the deficit limit, and they also recommend the institutional changes for better fiscal accountability. So remember, the FC 15 or finance this called 15th finance commission has to relax this target because of the pandemic. Right, this target were relaxed because of the pandemic, right? And state were allowed higher GFD, elevated GFD target, higher net borrowing limit. Why? Because the state needed more money for healthcare, welfare, and economic recovery. Right? State needed more money for healthcare, for welfare, for economic recovery. And India also had a law that's called Fiscal Responsibility and Budget Management Act. It's called FRBM Act, right? So this act set rule for reducing the fiscal deficit. Yes, this FRBM Act, they set rule for reducing the fiscal deficit and controlling the debt level and improving transparency in the government finance. So FRBM provide the long-term discipline, while the Finance Commission adjusts the target when required, right? So India has a law that's called FRBM. It act set the rule for reducing the fiscal deficit, controlling the debt level, and improving transparency in the government finance. Now, fiscal roadmap recommended by FC 15. So FC 15 give a detailed roadmap on how India should reduce its deficit over the next few years, like GFD GDP glide path. This question is asked: what is this GFD GDP glide path? So the commission recommended reducing the overall gross physical deficit from 9.3% to 6.8% in 25-26. This is called, glide path. Question may be asked, what is the glide path? So this was a recommendation of the Finance Commission 15, which says that GDP percentage, gross fiscal deficit percentage should be reduced from 9.3% to 6.8%, right? So glide path means a slow and steady reduction. This is a kind of, slow and steady reduction. This was the target. Then comes the debt GDP ratio, which means the Finance Commission also projected how India debt should come down gradually over the coming year to ensure long-term sustainability. Third thing is the normal net borrowing limit. So borrowing limit, it also recommended normal net borrowing limit for a state once the economy is stabilized. So there is something called, debt sustainability committee, right? So there is something called, interdepartmental group was set up, and this interdepartmental group was set up to do what? Interdepartmental group will be set up to review the India's debt sustainability, suggest change to the FRBM rule, ensure long-term fiscal health. So this ensures that future fiscal reform are based on expert analysis. So basically, this entire unit highlighted a very important message that monetary policy plus fiscal policy must work together. When both are aligned, the economy can achieve sustainable growth, low and stable inflation, and financial stability. Inflation matter a lot. Research shows that high inflation reduces the growth, and best growth occur when inflation stays below 7%. This is what research shows. When inflation is below 7%, then optimal growth occurs. So a country grows best when the government or fiscal policy is spent wisely. So country grow best when the government is spent wisely and keep deficit under control. Right. This is the first thing. So government spend means what? We are talking about the fiscal policy. Second condition. When the RBI, that is the monetary policy, right? They keep inflation low. They keep inflation low, right? That's the monetary policy. Third, both work together instead of working in opposite direction. Both work together. So fiscal policy and monetary policy. So this balance ensures price stability, economic stability, and sustained growth. This is the point. That is all we need to learn in this particular chapter. Now I request you to please go through the quizzes and MCQs which I have added. Thank you. Have a nice day.